your daughter's own experience with autism. Uh, if you could say what some of the misinformation is that's circulating about this vaccine, about these vaccines, the COVID vaccines. You've written, for example, that some of the concerns around the allergic reactions to the vaccines are not necessarily that different from allergic reactions that you see to other very common vaccines, including the flu vaccine. What do you think some of the misinformation is that's going around, and how can it be counteracted?
Yeah, and this is a huge problem because the anti-vaccine groups now, which historically have gone after the measles, mumps, rubella vaccine in kids or the HPV vaccine for cervical cancer and other cancers, have done a lot of damage in terms of getting parents not to vaccinate their kids or adolescents, are now pivoted and turned their attention to COVID-19 vaccines and COVID-19 prevention measures. So there's quite a laundry list now of things that they're alleging, and you sort of play this Pyrrhic game of whack-a-mole. You knock one down, another one pops up. So the first was that these are high rates of allergic reactions that kill. It's not true. The rate of anaphylaxis in the Pfizer and Moderna vaccine has now been looked at. It's around 3 to 5 per million, which is a little higher than the anaphylaxis rate for flu vaccine or HPV vaccine, which is 1 to 2 per million, but it's still a very rare event, number one. Number two, they're saying vaccines were rushed, they popped up out of nowhere in a few months. It's not true. This builds on a decade or more of research and development, identifying the spike protein as the soft target of the coronavirus. This is work that we began more than a decade ago, and figuring out ways to deliver the spike protein in a vaccine. So this has been a program that's been in play for more than a decade after the first SARS and MERS serious respiratory syndromes emerged. Then it gets crazier from there. Assertions that the mRNA is creating what they term genetically modified humans, GMH. You've heard of genetically modified organisms. Now they're calling them genetically modified humans. They still haven't learned much in the way of high school biology, not realizing the cell has both a nucleus and cytoplasm, and the mRNA only gets into the cytoplasm and it gets made into protein. So debunking that, and then it gets crazier from there. There's a big component saying that we're implanting microchips into people, and it's got me and Tony Fauci and Bill Gates out in some Area 51 labs sticking microchips into the vaccines, and 5G links, and you can imagine, and saying the vaccines contain aborted fetuses or aborted fetus material. All of that needs to be diffused. And part of the problem is, in the United States, we've never really mounted a big counteroffensive against the anti-vaccine disinformation campaign. We focus a lot on amplifying pro-vaccine messages when we can, but we've never taken a serious effort to dismantle the empire. And I think that's something that we're going to have to look at if we're going to be successful at this.
And Dr. Hotez, finally, your forthcoming book is titled Preventing the Next Pandemic, Vaccine Diplomacy in a Time of Anti-Science. Explain what you mean by vaccine diplomacy, and also this fact, which you were just talking about, of anti-science. Where does this originate? I mean, you've said that these anti-vaxxers are opportunists, but what do anti-vaxxers stand to gain from opposing the vaccines that might, in fact, save them?
Well, the book looks at a lot of 21st century forces that are bringing back disease, and I actually started writing it about a year before COVID-19, and it looks at things like war and political collapse, depleting health systems, climate change, urbanization, and one of the sub-themes of the book is the fact that all of these things are not ordinarily areas that biomedical scientists get training in, and that it's a call to broaden our training for biomedical scientists. In terms of the anti-science movement, it really I think really amplified in Texas starting in 2015. And I think one of the ways it got so strong was the link to political funding and the creation of political action committees. So part of the motivation is that the anti-science group tied their star to the far right wing of the Republican Party in the United States, and that had an amplifying effect. But it's not the only thing going on. There's also a link between a very expansive health and wellness industry that's promoting fake nutritional supplements, even fake autism cures. So that's another thread. You also and also the fake books. And if you go to Amazon.com and as everyone has done, put books up at the top, press return, you'll get a scroll down menu to the left that includes health, fitness, and dieting. You click on that, you'll get a second menu that says vaccinations. It's all fake anti-vaccine COVID conspiracy books. So Amazon is probably one of the single largest promoter of anti-science and anti-vaccine disinformation. So a lot of this is monetizing anti-science, monetizing the internet, and that's a big driver as well. So we don't really have our arms around the full money trail by any means, and I think that would also be a very productive avenue for some investigative journalists.